Hey, what's up? How you doing? All right, so today we're gonna be talking about how to secure a job before you graduate. Some people don't like that. Some people prefer to wait until they graduate to find a job. These tips will work either way. Well, some of them will work either way. Some of them are like specific to the timeline of before you graduate. But basically, I'm just gonna share with you some ways, some things that I did to help me get a job before I graduated. I had accepted a job early or mid-November and I graduated in December. So I did these and it worked for me. And so now I'm going to share them with you. If you're watching this at any recent moment in time, I know we're in coronavirus season and job opportunities are not exactly knocking down people's doors in this moment. I understand that it's going to be a little bit more difficult to find a job right now than any other point in time. If you're watching this later after the corona has passed, then these will be probably a little bit more on the nose for you. But in this specific period of time, I get that it's harder to find jobs. Even if you can't secure a job before you graduate, because so much crazy crap is happening right now, and there are not gonna be as many job opportunities probably when you graduate right now because of what we're living in this moment. A lot of these tips are still going to be helpful for you just finding a job, period, even if it's after you graduate. Most of these tips should still be able to help you even if you're getting a job later on and not necessarily before you graduate. With that being said, let's just get into it. I have a lot of stuff written down and I want to try to get to it all quickly. This one is just specifically if you're trying to get a job before you graduate. I recommend applying at least 2 months before you graduate. You can definitely apply earlier if you want, and technically you can apply later if you want to. There's no strict timeline you need to follow because it's just gonna vary. So there's not like one right time to start applying. I graduated in December. I started applying in October. Some people started applying earlier than that. Some people started applying later than that. Just in terms of from how long, in my experience and from my friends' experiences, it took getting the applications processed and starting to get calls and setting up interviews and whatnot. The best time to make sure you have one before you graduate, I think, is 2 months before you graduate. That gives you a little bit of wiggle room, but it's also not like if you're graduating in May, you're applying in January, because if you're doing that, then a lot of times employers aren't necessarily going to want to hire you yet because you're not going to be able to start until at least mid-May or later May. And if they're looking for people right then and there in January, they're probably not going to want to wait until May. So I don't recommend applying like immediately at the beginning of your final semester. I think about 2 months is like the sweet spot. But again, there's not like one exact right time to do it. So that's just my advice. When you apply, the best method I think is applying to like a decent amount of places at one time. Don't do the whole like apply to 1 or 2 places and then wait to see what happens with that. And then if you don't hear back from them in a couple of weeks, you start applying to more places. That's like, I mean, I guess maybe you could do that if you started like really far ahead in advance. But in terms of just sheer odds, the more places you apply, obviously, the better chance you're gonna get of getting an interview. I think I applied to like 10 places and got calls from 3 places. So you're not gonna get a call from every place you apply to. You know, you can go overboard. I don't recommend applying to like 50 places. One, that would take forever, and your applications are probably not gonna be as good because you're speeding through them to apply to so many places. I basically applied to like 3 or 4 places the first day, waited a week, applied to a few more, waited a couple more days and applied to a few more, basically is how I did it. Again, it's no exact science, it's just how I did it and it worked out for me. And I also used Indeed for the website that I went through to find most of my applications. There are other websites you can use literally for every job I've ever had besides my first job. I used Indeed. There are also other ways to find jobs. Obviously, that's just a really easy place to do sort of some scouting. Another way to find jobs is asking professors, especially ones within your field that you're applying to. Obviously, they're gonna have connections in that field. They're going to be more likely to know if there are any job openings or opportunities, maybe sort of like within their sphere. I had a friend who a professor told her about a job opportunity because like she was always doing really good stuff in her class with him and she worked really hard. He recognized it and he made her aware of a job opportunity and she ended up getting that specific job. So professors are also a really good way to hear about job opportunities or find them out. I recommend just like going up to professors and asking them, which this also goes into another tip that I gave in my like how to be successful in college video. which I also talk a little bit about how to make sure you secure a job in that video towards the end if you want more in depth on this. I'm not gonna go over all the things I talked about in that video again, so if you wanna hear some more information, you can also, after you watch this, click on that video. One thing I did mention in that video is working really hard to be noticed in the classes with the professors in your job field that you want to go into, to make them notice you, get on their good side. So that way when you need to get a job, you can ask them and they'll be more interested in helping you. I don't want to say more interested, that sounds like, I think they're gonna, like most professors are gonna be interested in helping all their students, but like if you're really, really working hard and you're like doing a really good job in that specific field, they might be more inclined to like work a little bit harder to help you find a job. As opposed to like if you just sort of slacked off in the class and then you like walk up to them the last day like, hey professor, by the way, are there any job opportunities you want to like throw me? Even after the whole semester I never really spoke to you or tried very hard in this class. You know what I mean? Just even if you only work hard in a couple of classes, pick the ones that you are going into that field for. Obviously I think you should work hard in all your classes, but I'm just saying if you're gonna save it for a couple, pick the ones with the professors that can help you get a job. Also, those same professors that you get on their good side are going to be the best ones to get recommendations from. They know about that field, they can give you good recommendations, and they're going to be weighed perhaps more heavily by employers if it's somebody that is like well respected in that field, or at least is in that field at all and they know about it. And also they're probably going to be more likely to give you glowing recommendations instead of a more just standard one. Also, in the same token with recommendations, you can use your friends as recommendations too. I had like a list of recommendations that I kept on my computer, different professors I've had over the years, different employers that I had over the years, and friends who also I could use as recommendations as well. Because friends who have already graduated and are already in the job field, they're professionals. So other professionals are going to value their opinion about you, and yes, they're your friend, and yes, they're going to give you a glowing recommendation because you guys are buddies. So use that to your advantage. Next, make sure people are reading over your resume before you just send it out. You definitely don't want to be sending out resumes with typos, for one. But then on top of that, have people read it who can give you good advice on how to make your resume better. Parents, professors, friends in the job market, even like previous employers, like if you're close with any of them, or maybe your current, like if you have a job in college, it doesn't have to be like a job that you're applying for. Like if you work at a restaurant, you can still maybe ask your manager like, hey, you hire people, what do you look for in a resume? Just people, professional people to look over your resume. It's always a good idea. Also, when applying, do the cover letters if you can. I know they're a pain, I know they suck. I hate writing cover letters just as much as the next person, and when you're applying to a boatload of places, the more cover letters, the more depressing your life gets. I get that. Seriously, a lot of people, if it's optional, they don't do it. So just by you doing it, period, is going to set you apart a little bit. Also, you can showcase your knowledge about the field or the job, or just make yourself, frankly, look better in a cover letter if you just have one. Also, it's never a bad idea to have a website. I'm sure for a lot of jobs, having a website might not be a common thing. I'm more privy to the media stuff and film, photography, journalism, all those kinds of jobs that do have websites because it's like our brand. But even if you're not in a media geared thing, it's always a good idea if you have anything that you can showcase, any sort of content whatsoever, whether it be something like written, whether it be like coding, whether it be whatever. Having one platform to put all of it on, websites are something to think about. Maybe not necessarily do, again, if it doesn't work with your field, but if it does, I highly consider making one because again, it can set you apart and it's a great way to just put all of your work in one spot to look at and really showcase yourself. And depending on the application, like for news, it asked in every single one of my applications, it asked if you have a website, insert the URL here. So if you're going into like a media type platform, definitely make a website because it's going to ask you if you have one, and it's again going to set yourself apart if you do. And it doesn't have to be super fancy or difficult. My websites that I have are all on Wix, which is really basic and easy, and it's free. And a good way to have content for your website, something that I went more in detail on in my How to Be Successful in College video, is joining clubs and organizations and doing internships and having jobs that pertain to your career while in college. Not gonna go in depth about this, like I said, because it's in my other video, and if you're watching this and you're like about to graduate, it's not really gonna help you that much anyway at this point. But if you are sort of earlier on in your college career, or this isn't your last semester, definitely highly recommend getting involved in different organizations in order to fluff up your resume and fluff up any content you could put on your website. I'm not gonna go into that, we'll just move right along. If you wanna hear more about that, you can watch that other video. If you are applying to places and they are far, far away from you, which is what I was doing, I don't think I applied to any place that was within a decent distance of where I was. You will most likely be doing Skype interviews, phone interviews, that kind of thing, because you can't obviously go somewhere if it's 10 hours away from you. If it's like your second or third interview and it's still phone interviews, I recommend suggesting or asking if they can do a Skype interview, because it's always better when they see your face. The closest you can get to being in a real, actual face-to-face interview, the better. Obviously, you can't do that if you're hours away, but a Skype interview or a Zoom interview is the closest and the best possible alternative. So when you have Skype interviews, dress professionally like you would for an actual interview. Be prepared just like you would, treat it exactly like a real interview. Have your resume out in front of you, have questions prepared to ask. Be attentive, look into the camera, don't be distracted, have your phone away from you, that kind of thing. Treat it as if it is a legitimate actual interview, because it is a legitimate actual interview, but it feels a little bit weird because it's over your computer screen. Also, picking a nice location. Don't do one with a bunch of dirty laundry or something in your background. Try to pick a decent spot in your apartment or house or whatever to do the interview. And if you live with roommates or family or someone, make sure to tell them that you have an interview going on and not to disrupt you or start yelling and cussing and screaming in the background, because that's not a great look. It would definitely make you stand out, but I don't think in the way that you want. Oh, also research a place before you interview there, whether it's in person or over Skype or whatever. You don't want to go into a interview and, for instance, not remember the name of the company or something that you're interviewing for. That sounds stupid, but I kid you not, when you are applying to a bunch of places at once and you have multiple different interviews set up, you can get them confused. Most importantly, know who they are that you're interviewing that specific instance with. But also you want to do at least a little bit of research about their mission statement, who owns them, who their managers are, that kind of thing. And if you can somehow squeeze their mission statement or something into the interview somehow, slyly and slickly, makes you look better. If you are applying long distance and if you are interviewing long distance, there is the possibility of flying out to see the job. If they're highly considering you or have offered you the job already, they should be willing to fly you out to see the place. And if they're not willing to, maybe that's something to consider about the company before you take the job. Also, if you're long distance, you can ask about moving expenses and moving pay, because a lot of companies will offer you relocation pay. I'm sure every company doesn't offer it, but it's nice if they do, and it can never hurt to ask. Okay, last thing I'm gonna touch on really quickly is to be thoughtful about your places that you are interviewing with and getting job offers from before you say yes. Maybe don't say yes to just the first place that offers you a job because you don't know if you could get a better offer later on. Now, some people do just say yes to the first place that they get offered because they're afraid that they won't get an offer anywhere else, and that's valid, and I get that. And if you don't think that you're gonna get another job offer, it doesn't look likely, yeah, take the job offer. But if you've been applying to places and you have interviews set, and then one place offers you the job, and sort of out of insecurity or any reason at all, you wanna say yes to that specific job, at least don't say yes literally right when they offer it to you. Ask them how long of a window that you have to think about it before you have to give them an answer, and then take that window. You might end up saying yes to that specific place, but you want to think about it first. You want to talk it over first. If you have any reason at all to maybe hold out and wait for other opportunities, just take the window that they give you before you have to say yes or no. In the meantime, you can still be applying and interviewing at other places. And who knows, maybe you might get another job offer and you can leverage it. Hey, I'm kind of getting offers left and right, and what are you gonna do to make me pick you? You know, you might be able to leverage it a little bit. Just saying. Best case scenario right there. All right, but that's it. Those are all my tips. Like I said, I have some other stuff where I go a little bit more in depth on a few specific keynotes that I talked about in here in my How to Be Successful in College video. So if you want to check those out, you get a little bit more tips, a little bit more in-depth information on over there. Highly recommend it if you're interested. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful. If it was, you can give it a like. You can also subscribe to me. Be safe, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.